This is your REI roving reporter, Hannon Russell, and now we are with Al Lawrence, who did, for the most part, almost all the editing on the newly released New York 1927 by Alexander Alekhine. Al, thanks for being with us tonight.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Hannon.
Tell us about your impressions of Alekhine's somewhat controversial tournament book, New York 1927.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is, of course, my wife Mary was the translator, and I was merely the editor. But I did put every game through Ribka as I was doing the editing. And the thing that stood out to me in that book is, of course, Alekhine's attempt to prove that Capablanca wasn't really the great master that everybody thought he was. Everybody else was convinced he was. And, of course, keep in mind that this match in 1927 took place before their championship match later, which, of course, Alekhine won. But this was, I don't know, it's a bit, to me it struck me a bit as sort of MMA, mixed martial arts, sort of trash talk before the big match, because Alekhine was trying desperately to prove that Capablanca's moves weren't very good, and other masters were sort of rolling over on him, even though Capablanca, of course, ran away with the tournament.
Right. He won it by, 3.5 points in a 20-round tournament?
And he was a point and a half against Alekhine, I believe. He had a big plus score against Alekhine in the tournament. And one interesting part to me was, as Alekhine was criticizing Capablanca's moves, Ribka would almost always Deep Ribka would almost always side with Capablanca. So there is something to the old saying that Capablanca played like a machine.
Well, in 1927, Capablanca was considered by many to be invincible. Why do you think, since this book was written after Alekhine won the title from Capablanca in 1927, the book was written at the beginning of 1928, why do you think Alekhine did this?
Well, I think that, I think it's an excellent question. You'd think that since the book was published after the championship match, that Alekhine would be trying to build Capablanca up rather than take him down, because after all, as you're pointing out, he just won this match. I'm not sure how it's hard to say when the notes were actually written. Many of the notes could have been written before the championship match. He certainly talks about it as if it's really a training match where he's trying to do opposition research against Capablanca.
He makes that point several times, and he would have the reader think that the learning process he went through in New York 1927 was in fact one of the reasons that he was able to defeat Capablanca later that same year.
Well, that's right. He does make that point several times. It's hard to explain, I think, why he takes the attack that he does, except that it seems to me that his feelings are very raw about Capablanca being considered so much better than he is, and at whatever period. And I suppose we should keep in mind that there are probably many people after the 1927 championship match that felt that match might have been a little fluky, and Capablanca was still the better player.
Well, that was a very strong tournament. Lasker did not participate, Bogolyubov did not play, but other than that, your top players were in there. This book has been praised both by German and Russian reviewers when it came out. How good is it?
Oh, I think the book is fantastic. It besides the sort of personalities and the psychological back and forth, there's just some wonderful analysis, the kind that Alekhine is really admired so greatly for. He breaks things down very logically. You find yourself understanding a position much better than you thought that you ever would. A very complicated position. Alekhine breaks it down into logical segments that he explains.
When the book appeared in Russian in 1930, the point was made that it was one of the few books at the time that helped the student understand the strategy involved rather than just the tactics. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. It's we think of Alekhine as, of course, the tactical wizard, But you can tell from reading the book that it's really based on deep positional understanding, and he does explain it so well.
Al, thanks very much. The New York 1927 tournament book is available from Russell Enterprises, 1995, at chess book dealers everywhere. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Anna.